I think that for a real writer or a poem, the no ideology should dominate his intuitive understanding of the society and culture. But I always thought that ideology works something like a spring which you have in case of a what you call pond, swimming pond. If you directly dip, you don't go much deeper. But if you use the springboard and then you dip it, you go much deeper into water. I think that ideology works something like the springboard to jump in the deeper levels of the socio-political strata. That is, I particularly feel it. I think that whenever there is a turmoil as it is today, and whenever we find that a particular anti-human ideology in a deeper sense is prevailing in the society, I mean the writers should react, but while reacting, they should not forget the medium they are using. Otherwise, it would be just a reaction, and reactions are always emotional and they don't go deeper in the brain. So, the moment you find that the things change, the emotional writing that you have done or reactions which you have expressed in your work of art, that becomes indifferent, because that becomes obsolete. It doesn't have any kind of the relevance to that. So, whatever you write, you should not forget the seriousness of the medium, whether it's a poem or a novel or a film or even painting. The writers merely reacting will not change the situation. I am sure about that, because the history is like that. So, whenever you give an immediate reaction, that will not appeal to the intellect or thinking. So, one has to be very serious as far as these values are concerned, and I am sure that no other media, no other art can change seriously the mind of the individuals except fiction, because it is the fiction that has to play a great role. I am also scared about poetry. It's going on in a very large number. The poets are there. But I am worried about the role of the poets, and not worried, rather I have my own apprehension about those poetry, because they work on emotions only, and the emotions are not going to change the situation. It is the intellect and emotions combined together that will change, that will go deeper in the level of minds of the persons, and then only the change can take place. So it is the fiction that must be written on a large, and that also large scale, and also at the deeper level, not merely giving a reaction to whatever is happening in the country. I have more hopes from fiction, because fiction operates on intellect. Fiction doesn't allow the kind of the emotions which are superficial emotions, rather, which are expressed in poetry today. The fiction works more for one reason, that fiction, the reader doesn't expect the emotional structure of the fiction if he is a serious reader. The second thing is fiction is directly concerned with the experiences of the life. You try to learn life only by experiences, and not just an experience in your mind enters and then you become. No, nothing like that. When you experience, you go on thinking about that. And the process of thinking is induced by fiction. And it is the process of thinking that changes the behavioral stand of the persons. Poetry demands emotions, an extreme emotions. A passionate world is demanded by the readers of poetry. They expect emotions from poetry, but they don't expect emotions from prose. If they expect emotions from prose, it is just the rubbish kind of the prose. It is what is called as trash. They read it for entertainment and for just forgetting themselves and getting involved in some kind of the pseudo world. The poetry will endure emotions, prose will not endure emotions. But you can't totally remove emotions, because when you experience a particular thing, it is an emotion at the beginning which later on changes to a certain thing. When once it goes in your brain, you start thinking, and I believe that very rarely poetry makes you to think. Poetry traps you in emotions, but fiction will essentially, if it is a good kind of fiction, if it is not a propagandist fiction, if it is not a fiction written for entertainment, that kind of a fiction is going to change internally, and that internal change will also reflect in your behavior. Yeah, I am always for the translation of pan-Indian languages, because we have a common sharing of culture and some civilizational problems. We find that much more similarities in the cultures of the microcultures or even the cultures of the India, and I have already told this many a times, that a writer like Sharath Chandra, or a Bengali writer like Sharath Chandra or Bankim Chandra or Tagore, they are my writers. How do I come to know them? Only by translation. You know, in most of the Indian writers, they know Manto, Saadat Hasan Manto, or Premchand is known. It is my writer, irrespective of whatever language he has used. Maybe Premchand has used Urdu at the beginning and later on shifted to Hindi. Maybe Manto wrote in Hindustani, which is neither Urdu nor Hindi, but a kind of altogether a different language that is a commoner's language. But Manto is my writer. Premchand is my writer, and that has happened only during translation. So, I have read in my early youth Eliot and Ezra Pound and Wallace Stevens, Hart Crane, and a large number of poets. But I never had a feeling that they were my poets. Whereas I feel that Gajanan Madhav Muktibodh is my poet, Nirala is my poet. This has done only with the help of translations. It's like kind of the second law of thermodynamics, where it states that Whenever an energy gets transferred from one place to other, some kind of loss is essentially there. You can't stop it. Maybe energy gets converted into a other kind of the energy, but that particular kind, there is a loss. So, like that, in a translation that also happens, some kind of loss is there. But considering the totality, that loss is not much important.